Stop the presses and hold on to your seat, folks. It's time to look back at one of our favorite episodes of Split Hoof Tonight.
Live from Sweet Swine County, where every day is sweet. It's Split Hoof Tonight with Billy Gates and the Broken Window Band. I'm Earl Silo, and here is Sweet Swine County's own Cousin John.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and welcome to our first initial showing of Split Hoof Tonight. Thank you, thank you. We're brought to you live about 2 miles north of the roving metropolis of Split Hoof in our brand new studios. You know, it's kind of a shame that my bank had to foreclose on the Grange Hall just to get this. You know, I know a lot of you have been here, but a pretty neat transformation into this state-of-the-art studios, wouldn't you think? Thank you, thank you. You know what now, and join me in welcoming our band. I mean, we got a group of all-stars here that come as far away as from High Horse and Cornrow, and even as far away as Shallow Falls. Please join me in welcoming Billy Gates and the Broken Windows Band. Thank you, thank you. And of course, we've got my good friend and sidekick, Earl Silo. How are we doing tonight, Earl?
Never better, Cousin John.
Perfect. You know, it's kind of funny. Earl invited me out to his parents' place the other day. Oh, Clarence and Opal. Clarence and Opal Silo, you know, they're kind of some of the biggest pig farmers around town here. Well, we were out there, and Opal and Clarence, they were just kind of leaning on one of the pig pens there. And Opal was musing a little bit. You know, it was going to be their golden wedding anniversary. She couldn't figure out what to do, so she says, Clarence, here's what we're going to do. We're going to roast us up a hog and have a big party. Clarence, he pulled the weed out of his mouth, and he's thinking a little bit, and he goes, you know, Opal, I don't see why the pig should have to suffer for something that happened 50 years ago. Well, let me tell you what, we got a great show ahead of us tonight, a great guest. We're going to have a whole lot of fun. We're going to learn a little bit about how some of the people from Sweet Swine County here are going out and finding some really nice places in southern Minnesota. So why don't we go out and take a look at a little bit of that, and we'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Charles Kornralt, and you probably know me from the TV show Tuesday Afternoon. Well, enough about me. Join my fellow celebrities as we take a look at small-town living at its best. In the county of Martin, the town of Fairmont, Minnesota, you will find Our Story Productions. In 2007, Jeff and Denise Rouse had a goal to produce a television program that would highlight the businesses, organizations, events, and people of their community. After hiring a local production company and recruiting friends and community members to volunteer, they began one of the most unique programs on TV. Because of their unique and, dare we say, corny programming, the show gained popularity. With their popularity, other communities began to contact them to see if they could become part of the Our Story family. New programs were added, additional volunteers were recruited. The Our Story team discovered some of the best stories were coming out of some of the smallest towns. So the decision was made to feature as many of the small towns as possible, no matter how small. They believe that every town has a story, and they all need to be told. Today, with staff that included over 60 volunteers, the television show Our Story, Small Town Living at its Best, spotlights over 225 small communities in 4 states and has told over 1,500 stories about the communities in the upper Midwest. Each show is aired in over 1 million households on cable television, as well as on their website, YouTube, and Facebook, and yes, even Pinterest. Our Story Productions continues to receive requests to join Our Story family and welcomes communities to email them to have their businesses, organizations, events, or people featured. Our Story Productions is proud to be sharing the lifestyle that we share in the small towns of the upper Midwest, for it's not just the past, but the present that becomes our story.
What do you say we bring out our first guest?
That's a good idea, Cousin John. Who is our guest today?
Well, you know old Clarice there, she does that little segment, Hidden Away and Not Forgotten. Well, she was traveling around southern Minnesota, and the other day she come and basically kicked the door in on my office. She was just all beside herself, telling me about this guy that we had to have for our first guest. She was up in Renville County, a little town of Morton, and she told me about this guy, and once I heard his story, I decided that needed to be our first guest. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Max Prinzing. Thanks, Max. All right. Well, Max, hey, we're really glad you could join us here. They tell me that you've got a manufacturing company that's called Prinzing Motor Cars.
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
What is it that you manufacture?
Well, we manufacture classic-style automobiles with the 1930s and 40s look with modern running gear.
Wow. Tell me, how did you get started in the business?
Well, I had a 70-acre farm in Winthrop, Minnesota, and just had crops. I didn't have animals. So I always wanted a classic car. I wanted a Duesenberg like my grandfather had.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, they're $1 million plus today.
Right.
Know? So, well, one winter out in the machine shed, I decided to make one. And I wanted a Rolls-Royce style grill and the Duesenberg type body and Packard-style hood vents. So it took about 6 months to sculpt it and 42 gallons of plaster of Paris.
Oh.
And then you make the die mold off of that. It was 5 pieces. We had to cut it in 5 pieces and then bolt it back together and wax it with a beeswax and make the Kevlar body. I use Kevlar because it's stronger than steel and it won't rust.
Right.
And it's a catalyzed process. You pull it, and pour it, and roll it in there cold, and when you pour it, you add the catalyst to it, and that heats it up over a period of 10 hours, and it cures, and next morning you unbolt the mold, and you've got the car body.
Wow. That's good.
Well, tell me, Max, who are some of the more famous people that you've made a Prinzing car for?
Well, we've made a car for singer Neil Diamond and John Denver. And, of course, Denver was from Mankato. He went to Mankato State.
Right.
And he married a girl there. I think her folks' name was Martel. They had the holiday house in St. Peter.
That's right.
Yeah, Ann was her name. And, of course, I was a member of the holiday house club there. And he had said he wanted to look at one of my automobiles at buying one. So when he came, I had, to a little town where we were at, I had moved the factory location to another town, a larger location. And I had a little paper there taped on the door that we had moved, but it had blown away. And in that little town, the high school kids and junior high school kids can come home for lunch for a half hour because it's only about 6 blocks wide. So it was about noon, and he couldn't find us, so he went across the street to a house there, and 15-year-old girl answered the door, and of course he had a chauffeur-driven limo. He'd flown in his own jet. He was coming back for Thanksgiving to visit the folks. And anyway, he said, "You look just like John Denver." Yeah, he said, "That's who I am." So he went out to the limo and got a picture and autographed it for her, and she went back to school and showed it to all the kids, that she had met John Denver. And he bought a blue car with a rumble seat and extra fuel capacity.
So, well, where have some of your cars been shipped to?
Well, we've shipped cars to Switzerland, to Russia, to France, and all over the United States, Hawaii, and so on. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Which one of your cars is your favorite?
Well, I like the Spirit of Minnesota. I built that in 1978. That was the first 100% ethanol-powered car built in the United States. And, of course, I drove it 6,000 miles across the United States. And Senator Rudy Boschwitz, he drove it 6 blocks, and the Washington Post newspaper came out and took his picture. What I like about the ethanol, of course, is that it's homegrown in America, and it takes 280 million acres to take care of all the gasoline-powered vehicles in America that haven't run on ethanol. we have 500 million acres that won't grow crops. It's too rocky and so on, but poplar trees will grow there, so you can make wood alcohol out of poplar trees in all 50 states. So we really have no need for imported oil. We could take care of ourselves. And I just wanted to prove it to people, to show them that it could be done. And today all of our vehicles run on 100% ethanol or gasoline or any combination of the two.
Anything in between, so not just the E85 or anything, just
Yep.
99.1 or 100%,
Yep.
doesn't matter.
Yep. And we have sensors in the fuel tank that go to the computer, because we have a modern drivetrain, even though the car looks, classic.
Sure.
And it'll just keep running. All you got to do is put the key in and go, And I think we're the only car company in the U.S. that has that standard. It's not an option. That's the only way you can buy it, is with a multi-fuel engine.
So what type of cars are you building now?
Well, now we're building professional cars for the wedding and the funeral industry and special occasions, limousines and hearses and so on. And, we built the first art carved panel hearse since 1941, when the war broke out. They quit building cars. Yeah. And it's, I guess, the first one in 68 years. We delivered that to Arkansas. Mm-hmm. The art carved panel was carved out of wood, which I did, but then we made a casting and made the sides out of Kevlar, and that, they make bullet resistant vest out of Kevlar.
It'll be a little easier to maintain and last a little longer than the wood.
Yeah, last a lifetime. Yep.
So Max, if the folks want to learn more about your business and about your cars, do you have a website you could go to or something like that?
Holy crap, Earl, that's a good question.
Yeah, we do. It's www.prinzingmc.com. And take a look at it and see what you think, and click us an email, your comments, if you will. We appreciate that.
Well, that's great. Well, that looks like all the time we got today. Max, really like to thank you for stopping by and being with us today. I'm with us, telling us all about your Prinzing motor cars. Once again, folks, I'd like to thank the studio audience for joining us. Don't forget Billy Gates and the Broken Window Band. And join us next time for another great edition of Split Hoof Tonight. Good night, everybody.